Hi, I'm Rajneesh.
And I'm Bridget,
Welcome to Terra Science.
the podcast where reality matters.
It's a pleasure to have Gary Singh with me today. Gary Singh is a council member at Manteca. Manteca is a city about 70 miles east of San Francisco and not too far from Sacramento. So it's centrally located. Houses are still affordable somewhat here, and life is quite nice. So I think it's a poised to be a growing city. It is already a growing city. If I read my numbers correctly, the population has increased by 20 or 25% in the past 5, 6, or 10 years. So um, Gary is a council member, like I said, and he is also running to be the mayor. And the election, as we know, is November 8th. And everyone should go out and vote, especially if you're in Manteca. You have some really good candidates. And this is the second podcast in the series. We had one with Mayor Ben Pantu earlier, which was posted today. And we have Gary, who's the second contender. And then we'll also plan one for Billy and Lars. So with this, I would like to welcome Gary. And before we start our discussion, we always ask our guests to tell us about their journey, how they got here, what is the exciting thing that they have in their mind at the moment. So, Gary.
All right, definitely. First, before I start on anything, I want to thank Rajneesh and to allow me the opportunity to speak to you and your Terra Science project groups and the podcast that you have put together. I definitely think this is a great platform, and you guys are doing some awesome things to move our community forward and throughout our region. And I love some of the stuff that I've actually looked at already. So let's talk about Gary Singh and how I came about and why am I so crazy to want to do this today.
Yes.
So, growing up, I'm a Valley kid my whole life. My journey really doesn't start with me. It starts with my father. My father comes from a small business background, came here first generation, really was, and started working on farms as a young person when he immigrated to this country. And then from there, he decided he had that bug to be an entrepreneur. So he started his own small business. He used to work for a company called Winchell's, which was those days of Krispy Kremes, a donut shop type thing. Then he opened up his own donut shop. And that's around the time that me and my mom actually came here to America. I was 3 years old when I came to America. So I was not born here, but I was definitely pretty much been raised here my whole life. That was in Tracy. And then from there, we moved to Lathrop. Kind of did some of the moving like you're doing, but I did it just in the Valley. So went from Tracy to Lathrop. I went to Lathrop School as a kid, and then went to Sierra High School here in Manteca. We've owned our small business here in town, a convenience store. My dad's owned that now for 36 years. So grew up in small business my whole life. After I graduated out of Sierra High School in 2000, I was the millennial class, which fits for me because I am a millennial myself. And from there, I went to University of Pacific and came out of there with a business degree in concentrated in law and financing with a real estate background. And with that, and then I also did a minor in biochemistry because, I'm Indian, so I had to become a doctor, so that's kind of normal, right? So unfortunately didn't go that route. And, my parents are probably not too happy with me on that one. But came out of college and went into real estate and worked with that. And then we still ran our family business and never really thought about politics, wasn't a politician, wasn't really, nobody in my family has ever been in politics. I'm just more of a business person that saw an opportunity coming for our community, for our city. Also thought an opportunity to basically represent individuals, especially the small business community, because I've seen so much of them that are so busy doing working in their businesses and putting on many hats, but not ever realizing that there's decisions that are made at the government level that affect their business every day. And that's kind of how I transitioned into this. I started as a planning commissioner for the city. That was about almost 10 years ago from today. And so I got appointed as a planning commissioner. And then, even then, I never thought I was going to run for anything or be a council member or anything. But sitting in planning commission, seeing some of the aspects of how we develop our communities, and looking at some of the things that I thought was very outdated on how we did things, I kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. And but then also saw that I was the young planning commissioner. Everybody else on the commission was much, much older than I was. So I had maybe a different perspective of thinking. And from there, I saw that a lot of times, as you may know, being on a commission, we are not the final voice. A lot of the decisions that we make go to the city council. And a lot of times the decisions that we did make were flipped back because the council didn't agree with us. And I guess that's basically where the urge started, saying, I guess I can't solve it here. I need to figure out a way to get up there and maybe be part of the solution. And that's how the council trend started. I was a young guy running for council on a business platform, and then just kind of went from there and didn't really, probably not a lot of people thought I was going to win, but I did end up winning originally, and ended up being actually the youngest elected official in the city of Manteca. And again, I ran for re-election in 2020. And so today, my seat is actually good until 24. But this year the mayor seat was up, and I've kind of been there now. I'm still the youngest person on the council today. But now I'm actually the most tenured also. So I'm the tenured youngest. So
right.
you get
well, it's good. So that is a good experience in the first in the planning commission, then also in the council. Right. So tell us, what is your vision in the next 4 years? What do you see as, we can dig deeper into some of those topics, but just more like a list of menu of things that you may have in your mind that you would like to cover in the next 4 years.
Yeah, so definitely. I think the biggest thing, and you've probably heard me talk about it before, is really figuring out how do we become a very sustainable city, a community. We are growing, like you said. Currently, we are 88,000 in population. When I was much younger, it was a lot smaller than this, but maybe not as small as some of my counterparts that have been part of this community a lot longer than I've been on Earth. But still seeing, there's this, we got to find that middle ground, because, there's this push and pull going on where we have individuals that you would call the originals of Manteca, and that's seen this community, and it's a farming community background that, have seen it as a small community that was a town that's now grown into a city, and they don't like it. And then at the other side, you do have growth, and it's coming, and it's inevitable, I believe. It's also, instead of fighting it, we should be part of the solution and figure out how it's going to be more sustainable for our city, and how we're going to make sure that it doesn't turn into some crazy urban sprawl that is uncontrollable. And that's where I think a lot of my topics of things that we can discuss come from that aspect of how do we make sure what we're doing today is what our kids are going to be proud of in the future. And that maybe comes from just being the younger one, we are called the family city of Manteca. And I think I represent that, being as a family man and having young kids in our community that go to school here. I'm trying to set, as the kid that went to school here and grew up in the city, and now moving forward, I'm raising the next generation. I'm just figuring out what is that next generation going to look like, and what kind of Manteca we're going to leave them. So important topics, of course. As you know, we've been growing residentially tremendously. Currently, there's over 10,000 allotted lots already entitled in this community. But the shift needs to happen. I don't know if you watched one of my series where we had talked about that. We're growing residentially and we're becoming very one-sided. But in that aspect, it's not sustainable because property taxes, that is one of the sources of revenue for any of the municipalities, is not sustainable because especially in our county, in our city, our property tax share agreement with our county is an 80-20 split, where 80% of your property taxes actually go to the county and 20% of them only come to the city. So whenever somebody tells me, I pay my taxes, why aren't we getting all these amenities and services? Well, you pay your taxes, except for they go to the county, most of them, and they're not here.
Okay.
So that's going to be one of our fights also. So the way I always look at this is, what can we do today to fix whatever we're trying to do with what we have? And then what are we going to do to make those changes so the future generations and the future council members and the bodies do not deal with the same problems that we have today? So that would be kind of my growth issue today, where we need to fix that split with our county and do something that's more sustainable. The aspect of that is also because we are a full service city, meaning that we provide, police, fire, public safety, your sewer, water, your garbage services. Everything is provided by the city of Manteca. There's nothing really sent out. So my question is, what are we getting for that 80% that we're sending out to the county? So that will be one of those pushes. The next push really is going to be this transition. We need to understand that we are a city, and we need to start acting like one. And we are not a small community anymore. So it's very important to understand that if we're going to become one-sided, we need to shift away from that and go into more commercial and commerce growth and sales tax revenue for the city side, but also a better quality of life for our citizens, because every day we have 120,000 vehicles that go down Highway 120 and 205 down to the Altamont to go to the Bay Area, and the impacts that puts on not only the environment but also on the quality of life for the individuals that spend anywhere from 4 to 8 hours on the road, and probably longer on the road than that work. That is just not sustainable. And
I'm one of them.
You're one of them, right? So you feel the pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we? It's going to be twofold. How do we attract those companies and those individuals that are on the other side? Hey, we have land for them. We have their workforce here. Why are you not bringing your manufacturing jobs, your IT sector jobs to the valley instead of? And you could probably get away with maybe not paying as much. Because you're going to save a lot of money from gas and all of that. And at the same time, the individual side. So it's a win-win. It's a win for those companies out there to come into our valley. But on the other side, it's also a win for the residents, because they can now spend more time and be part of our community instead of, unfortunately, people just like you, I call them zombies, because they only come to our community to sleep. And they're literally going back and forth all the time. They never really understand what's happening in Manteca, and they never take part of the local things because they're too tired by the time they get to that point.
Well, luckily, I only commute 2 times a week, and I spend 4 days a week, or rest of the 5 days a week actually in Manteca, so I can work remotely, fortunately. But not everyone can do that. But those are great points. So let's start delving a little bit deeper into these issues, which I think are really important. So I mentioned earlier before we were talking that I used to live in Livermore, and there was a transition in Livermore where exactly the same thing was happening, and Livermore dealt with it in its own way. Now there are, I don't know if you drive by there are all these stacked townhomes and houses. And they're all going to the same freeways, same roads. One of the things that Livermore wanted to do was to bring companies in, which they've been able to do somewhat successfully. The challenge is employees, right? So the reason Bay Area has all those companies is because I have a company. Actually, I moved my company here already. So, but still, because most of the people can work remotely. the access to UC Berkeley, Stanford, and people that you want to hire. So I think those people may eventually also be accessible in Manteca, but we need to create an environment or bring in more ways of how to say it, like a educational
Institution.
systems, institutions in the city, and that goes in many directions. Let's say even if there's a community center. The reason I started this channel Terra Science, mainly because I wanted to inform people about all the things that are out there that can solve our problems.
Right.
Because most of the time on social media, we only hear about problems. We don't hear about solutions.
Oh, I know.
So if you have some solutions, and if we can have people doing their work, living in the same city, having a better quality life, but then we need to have information exchange within the community to learn what opportunities and options are available.
Right. No, and I agree with you completely. I mean, it comes multiple folds. What you're thinking of is the concept that I've thought about before. Is, we need to have that think tank.
Yeah.
We need a way to show that there's more to the world out there than just what we see in the Central Valley. And the other biggest issue that you just hit on is that the workforce and the educated workforce that you are looking for. I think it is here, or it's our kids, they're here, but the problem is that we send them off to college and they don't come back. And so we got to make those environments happen where they can find those jobs here, where they want to come back to the community that they grew up. Why do people always only want to come back here to retire? But when our kids go off to Ivy League colleges or anywhere else, and when they get done, they don't want to come back to our community because the jobs aren't here. And so it's a chicken and egg thing, right? You're saying you can't find the workforce, but the workforce is saying they can't find the jobs. Right. So we gotta start molding and creating that environment where we can show individuals on both sides, and that is maybe partnering with our local universities here and creating those programs where early on, before they even get to the graduation levels, showing that they can come back and work within the community that they live in, and they necessarily don't need to move away and still make the same amount of money. Or even if they're making a little bit less, at least the cost of living is much cheaper here than other places. On the other side, same thing with those companies. I think that's where opportunity is going to be for us, is that looking at economic development, I'm actually proposing, even moving forward, that we're going to create something we have our economic development department, but we're trying to make it even more robust, where we actively go pursue companies and market to them. I mean, my day job, I'm a real estate broker guy, so that's what I do. I market our city all day long. But there's so much good things happening in our community and in the city, and like you mentioned earlier on, the central location of Manteca is key. That is why we are pretty much dead center in California. Right there in the middle. Within an hour or 2 hours, if there was no traffic, you can basically go to the ocean, the mountains, go into Sacramento, and you are blessed with so many things being right here in the middle. And that's what we need to sell to those companies, saying, hey, look, we have the land, we have your workforce, or we'll make that workforce happen with the institutional knowledges and the educational side. And the other thing that we can help from a city's perspective is, hey, if you want to develop here, we're going to work with our planning departments and streamline that process where your time to market will be much faster here, meaning that the day you say, hey, we want to open up this type of business or this company here, we'll get you approved through our processes through the city within the next 6 months, not 2-3 years down the road. And that's been a biggest thing that I've learned in real estate too, is time is money. And it's not always just some tax sharing agreements or something. It's how quickly can I be up and running? And that's what I think we can sell from a city's perspective also. And
those are good points. And thanks for bringing up the workforce aspect of it, because you're right. I think, there's brain waves that maybe leave rather than stay. And that's important for, I think, all the parents as well. They rather have their children stay closer to them than move out for jobs somewhere else. So another thing, then another advantage of this is the aspect of carbon footprint. I
Right.
know that not everyone may agree whether there is global warming or not. That is not the issue.
Right.
We're not talking about that at all. What we are talking about is how we live our lives. And if we are driving, we are spending a lot of time and burning more gas, which is more and more expensive, and I don't see it going down anytime soon.
Yes.
Being able to commute within the city. So as these things happen, the changes of public transportation thing, you mentioned that before a little bit. So what are your
Right.
plans on that?
Yeah, so that's right there. What you just said is, yes, everybody may not agree with global warming or carbon footprint, but I think one thing everybody can agree on is traffic, right?
Right. Yeah.
Everybody knows, and that's not a partisan issue. That is, traffic is here, and we need to do something about it. So
Yeah.
again, it's what are we going to do today, and what are we going to do in the future? So
Mhm.
today, some of the things that I've looked at is that I've always been a big believer of public transportation. Yeah, if we can get a bus service that we have currently, we have 4 different routes within our community for
Mhm.
our bus service that run consistently. One of the biggest things when I remember when I first got elected, our bus service here locally was um, not very well used
Okay.
because
Mhm.
it really wasn't. The issue was is that I don't think anybody took it seriously, the public transportation side. They just thought of it as just something to have because we got federal dollars for it to spend,
Mhm.
and we can use some of those funding to also repair streets because buses run on streets. But they never thought about the actual use of the public transportation for actually being a benefit to the community. A lot of times it
Yeah.
ended up just being a service for seniors.
Right.
So one of the first things that we really did is that we changed the way we look at public transportation. And then also to create demand for that, we actually made sure and fixed our routes where they actually go to things that people want to go to.
Hmm. Right.
So, we didn't even have a service that used to go to south of 120 at one
Hmm.
time. There was nothing going on to that side because the perception was, oh, that everybody that lives over there has a car, so they don't need to use public transportation. We didn't have our buses actually go to our shopping centers.
Hmm.
So, didn't go to the movie theater, the Bass Pro Shop areas, didn't go to the Costco's. So now today, our bus services go to a lot of those centers. They go to the Boys and Girls Club, they go to the Senior Center, they go to DMV, they go to places that you may want to go to, and they're on a fixed route, meaning every hour you can get to those places. And the other thing that you're probably right there, is I love technology. And the one thing that we pushed for that is having an app for our bus
Yeah.
service where you can sit
Right.
there and you can see where is the bus at while you're sitting at a bus stand waiting, when is it going to come here and where is it going to go. So that was another big push that we try to make. The other thing that I recently brought on board was that we included our bus service to actually start going to all of our schools.
Hmm.
Being a commuter town right now, unfortunately, a lot of parents may not have the ability to drop off their kids to school. And if your school is not within that parameter of what a school board believes that you should be provided school bus service, well, every one of our buses goes to every one of our high schools now.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
so,
that's good.
and,
Yeah.
and right now we were actually able to get a grant where it's free for students.
Yeah.
So now you can
That's
use
great.
public transportation instead of having everybody lugging their kids in their car and having all those cars show up at all these schools and creating traffic and
Right.
mayhem. You have a public transportation service that runs from morning all the way to evening, so it covers both sides. So that's some things that we're doing locally. The other big game changer that's going to happen for our city is ACE Train.
Hmm.
So starting next year, ACE Train is actually going to stop in downtown Manteca,
Oh,
right there
okay.
at our transit center on Moffett.
Hmm.
I really believe that is going to become a big game changer for this city, because that ACE Train, once it is all said and done, we were talking about education earlier, that ACE Train will go all the way to Merced
Hmm.
from this side. So now you can go to the Merced University, Stanislaus University, MJC. It's going to stop Turlock. It's going to stop in Modesto, Ripon, and then it's going to interconnect here where it will be able to go all the way to Sacramento.
Mhm.
and on the other side, take it to the bay.
Yeah.
And so that's how we can start creating those communities that we were talking about, where you're not relying on just cars and vehicles. And you can create, and I've kind of written about this before. I don't know if you've ever, I think you read that one, where I was talking about a vertical village concept community, where you're not just relying on cars and buses or your own transportation mode, but the idea of that you may not need anything. You just
Mhm.
are relying on public transportation, where you're living in, like our downtown concept that I had was right across from our transit center. We should be building a vertical way of where commercial is on the bottom, residential is on top, and we go vertically up where individuals can live there, go and eat, shop in our downtown, take the train to go to work, and then come back home. And now you've created that demand, and the supply will show up, and where you create those transit centers completely, with my village concept. And that's also where you can work on that carbon footprint that we were talking
Yeah.
about, because now guess what, the traffic's not there, because you don't need a car anymore, and you can just walk everywhere locally. And also, I think it builds communities, and you have a sense of community. So that's another opportunity, I think, for the immediate being of how we're going to bring people to, allow them to get to job centers,
Mhm.
but at the same time, and not be a burden on our highways, and our streets. At the same time, we're doing our part in the environment aspect of it, or at least our part in making sure there's no traffic craziness going on. And then the long run, like I said, is of course, working with those companies and saying, hey, look at all these people that commute. Look at all these people that use our ACE train to you. Why don't you come here? And one other big thing I think I want to talk about when it comes to that aspect is fiber. If we're going to bring jobs and work, and those companies to come here, we have a fiber line that runs right along our rail tracks here in Manteca. And we have started to work together in attaching to that and creating a fiber network. A few years back, we actually created a dig once policy. What that means is basically whenever we do a street or we do any kind of work, at that time, while we already have it dug out, we put conduit in. And so that way, in the future, when we're ready to put fiber lines in, you don't have to dig it up again.
Right.
And that's how you create your fiber network throughout the city. And that way you can one day offer, great speeds of internet for what these companies are looking for to come here. And at the same time, at one day, the vision is to hopefully offer public internet, to the community. And that's going to be, I think, another thing that's going to allow those businesses to want to come into our community and not anywhere else.
Yeah, no, those are really good ideas. And I just want to backtrack a little bit. Those are really good ideas. So I don't want to lose track of the last
I
two
know
things
I'm
you
throwing
said.
a lot at you.
No, but that's good. So I'm going to backtrack. I want to support the idea of the S train, first of all, because I lived in Tracy. So, like you have been moving more eastwards, Livermore, Tracy, Manteca. But when I was in Tracy, I was a transportation commissioner. And the reason I became that was because I used to take the S train. I work at Stanford. So I used to take the S train and I would have to change somewhere, but it was much more convenient. I can work, it has Wi-Fi, and things changed during COVID. So obviously, we have to pay more attention to public transportation, how we do those things in the days of pandemics. But the problem was the buses that were running, that were connecting the center of the city to the S trains. Usually the buses will arrive after the train leaves. I don't know who was making the plans. So like 10 minutes after the train leaves, that's when the bus arrives. So then you have to wait another 45 minutes for the next train, or you have to come. So I was like, who is doing this? So that's why I went on there.
East side or in the Bay side?
No, that was on the Tracy side.
Wow.
That was on the Tracy side. So things have changed a lot. So the other thing that was happening, and I was a big proponent of that in my serving as a commissioner there, was to work on the app. And it was so difficult because, like you were saying before, everything has to go through the council. all the ideas are modified, changed. So my question, which you just said, you went through really wonderful ideas. How much of that is actually feasible? And these things are not easy to do in 4 years, but they take longer. But the vision is important. But to be able to do them, you have to have the support of others, and they have to see the same thing. So that's the challenge.
Correct. You're right. And that's why I think that it's all how you sell it, right? And how you tell people of the vision. Yes, what I'm saying today, it's not going to happen tomorrow. But some of those things that I've talked about, we've already started implementing. It's not like I'm going from scratch. I think we create the long-term vision, and we put the parameters in place so that way even future councils are following that through, because it's already there, and the step-by-step processes are there. It may not happen in my time or the next time, but the goal is that as long as we have the overall vision that we're sticking with, it can be done. I think I do have a very good council in place today, moving into the future, where these things are doable. I think there is, like I said earlier, there's this tug of war going on between old Manteca and new Manteca. But I don't think we need to forget either side. I think we can be a perfect middle piece of where we can bring both of them together. I don't think it needs to be this tug of war. Honestly, you need just to bring both sides to the table and work together in creating the future Manteca. So I think a lot of that is feasible. It's not pie in the sky ideas, because it actually is already taking place. I think it will be great to have more people other than just me, but even when it comes to the constituency and the people and the public wanting to come and be part of the solution in the community, and be part of also different commissions and different things that are going to come as part of the councils. That way you can also be part of that think tank that I talked about, where I don't know all the answers and I don't know everything, but you know what? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of smart people that live in our community with us that can provide and help with those answers. But yeah, a lot of the things I think we've already talked about. ACE is coming, public transportation is there. We've seen the shift. It's happening. So let's embrace it and let's move it forward instead of pretending it's not happening.
Right. No, it's important. I mean, the first thing to do is think of it and act on it, and then just make it work. So another thing that is very close to personally to me is I'm a plant scientist, and I've spent many years trying to work with researchers at Berkeley as well as Stanford, and many of these technologies and research, they stay in a box and in universities. It's very difficult, because if it is not profitable and it's not going to be adopted by a company. But there are so many wonderful ideas and technologies that can be used by cities to create a better plan where the trees are, like urban forests. Well, when especially as we are growing, as we are making plans to where to put houses, if we pay attention to where the water is flowing underground, where we have to water less to the trees, where we can have provide parks, local parks for community to come together, maybe even have an education center. So new ideas are being exchanged. And then there is other technologies, which I've been working on some as well, but and all these are free. I'm not trying to promote or sell anything. Everything I do, but but these days we are building a map of who's growing what food, how they're growing it, because the distribution system is a huge problem as well, the food distribution system. And so restaurants and grocery stores, even if when they say local, that local means 400 miles radius. So, but there are local growers. You go to the local farmers market here, there are people coming from Watsonville, there are people coming from nearby, and those fruits were taken off the plants not too long ago, compared to something that's been shipped a day or two or a week ago. And these things can be shown digitally, and so allowing people to have access for free. I think so. These kinds of things we can adopt as we grow our city, and if the council and people are open to this, this could be one of the first cities that turns this dial up. And because we are, as in Manteca, you're facing a growth period. That's the right time to adopt these kinds of technologies and work with universities and industries. And as we start to work with them, obviously they will want to come here as well. Another reason. Right?
Yeah, no, you covered a lot there, and I'm gonna try to see if I can bring it all together here. Yeah, no, I mean, let's talk about first our food. We are the agriculture community. We started as an agriculture community. There's no need to, when they talk about farm to fork, if they're having farm to fork in San Francisco, I'm pretty sure they can have farm to fork in the Central Valley where the farm is.
That's right. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
So you're right. We talked about carbon footprint for commuters and things like that. But you're right. There's another carbon footprint of how far our food has to travel to come here, where we can grow it locally. There's no need for it to travel. And then the other thing is, I think also farming ag, we just need to understand that there's a shift, right? Now, we are the pumpkin capital, but at the same time, suddenly we're starting to become the almond capital. But is that really the best food, the best plant for this region when it comes to not maybe just on financial side, but on the sustainability side? Because also those trees also take in a lot of water. And so we have to understand the type of farming that we're doing, and also look at, hey, maybe we look at some of the smaller farmers, some of the other ones, and showing them the process of how we can partner with them to bring in those concepts locally into our community here, instead of having to go out for miles and miles like you mentioned.
Absolutely. That's sorry to interrupt there, but you're absolutely right. And the reason for almonds and all these is economic benefits to the growers. Specialty crop is the crop that we consume. Like we go to farmers market, all of that is specialty crop. The specialty crop farmers don't make as much because they have to work harder. And the main reason is because they're not connected to the local sources that can buy their products. So sorry, you're right. So one way to change that is to connect them more with the restaurants and the grocery stores.
Right. There's always this thing about where we think that the farmer or the ag community is enemies of the city, because the city is bringing development and urban sprawl, so they're taking them out of here. But I think this is a great concept of having cities actually work together with our farmers, where we can both coexist in these communities and actually be part of the solution together. So I think, definitely, I would love to hear more about some of the technologies out there that can help us, even on a local level that you were mentioning, to figure out how we can do what we are doing. I'm a big guy on how to make things and processes faster, easier, how to cut things out and making that whole thing more resilient, instead of just doing it because that's the way we've always done it.
And it increases accountability. You cut down the distance of where your food is coming from. All of a sudden, accountability of where it came from increases.
Right? Yeah, if I'm getting my watermelon from Perry's Market here locally, that grown right here in Manteca, or my pumpkin, I know the Perry's. I can go say, hey, what's going on here? What's in this?
Right.
Instead of getting it from Guatemala. Whatever. Right. So no, definitely. I think you hit the nail right there. I think it's important that we sometimes kind of forget the whole farm to fork concept. That all of these urbanized big cities are trying to do is actually what we are.
Right. Exactly. So we don't want to lose that.
Right. We definitely don't want to lose that, and that because that is our roots, and that's where we started from. The other one that you mentioned was trees and lawns, and the urban heat shed that we create, basically with the way, the type of landscapings and buffers and that we do. I would be really interested in whatever technology that you have that helps us grow trees and plantations, because that's another issue that I've seen. Is I like trees, but the problem is sometimes we keep on following rules and trends that we plant certain types, or we plant them in certain locations, which may not necessarily be the best location anymore. The biggest things when I see it in, say, neighborhoods or in front of your homes, we need to change our landscaping plans, where we need to stop relying so much on this love for grass and
Right.
landscape. It is, first of all, we are sandy soil, and we're supposed to be a desert, but and it's not normal for grass to be growing there. So we need to get away from that concept, and I think we can go into drought resistant landscaping, which also includes trees. And because on the long run, that's how we can lower our temp. I mean, I think I've read something even before that having an urban tree management plan and having more trees within a community actually lowers the temperature in that community. So I can see that concept coming, where we encourage, as development is coming, that hey, no more front yards. Front yards should not be just grass, and also trees should not be put in right next to the sidewalk, right next to the water lines and the sewer lines, because that's just going to cause problems in the future with roots and everything. And then the other issue is, a lot of times people, they don't hate trees, they hate the problems that trees may create. But the problem is, normally I think it comes from us because of the type of tree that you ended up putting there, or maybe it's not a deep rooted tree, maybe it was right next to a sidewalk. So we can do a better planning of that aspect, and making sure what we plant, where we plant it, where this actually could become very nice.
Well, I'll throw in another thought that we've been thinking about this for a long time, and agroforestry, which is trees that are fruit trees which grow food, and they can be in communities. Even cities can plan them in a certain way, and then when if the harvest is planned really well, guess what? We don't have to sell it. That goes to food banks.
Very nice.
And we have digital systems like apps that we've been talking about. They can show, hey, this harvest was ready, come pick it up. It solves many more problems of homelessness, of access to food.
Right. And
So
we have a food bank in this community, so it would be a perfect partnership. The other side of that, I would say, is the concept of a community garden. Yeah. I think that is another big win that we can do, is that we can have individuals that like to do that, be part of the community, and bring those different aspects and their knowledge of of gardening and plants. And I think we can create a community garden. It's just getting people to champion that within our community. And then, like I said, like you said, we don't need to sell that back. We can actually help. And, homelessness is another topic we can go on for hours about, but, we can bring that food back to helping the community and helping the needy, or even, like you said, bring it back to our food bank. I think, again, it's part of the whole aspect, the life cycle of where we're helping each other within our community from beginning.
Absolutely. Well, this is great. Like you said, we can go on for a very long time, but anything else that you would like to talk about or cover?
You know what? I want to maybe cover a couple more topics on sustainability again. I think we talked about the plants and everything. Another concept that I really feel, another one is we're facing a drought right now, so the water is very important to us. We already kind of talked about the transition from lawns to more drought resistant landscaping. The other one that's very near dear to me is our reclaimed water and purple pipe project.
Right.
I think this is a concept that we've been pushing for a long time, and I think it's time to actually do it. And your audience is not familiar with it. It's basically taking our sewer treated plants, their water that's running through the whole process, and basically being dumped into the river at that point, and actually bringing that back into the community and using it for especially our parks, and making sure that we're watering our higher water uses for that aspect. So one of the things that we are done recently is we actually just updated our north sewer trunk line that runs the north side of this community. And at the same time, you know, we kind of had talked about earlier this dig once policy. We used, when we put that line in, we also put a purple pipe project line in also, and that will help us take, hopefully eventually, water all the way to the north side of the community. But another big place that it will take water to is our golf course in the community. We will be able to take sewer treated plant, and we have a tertiary process, by the way, at our sewer treatment plant. So basically we are one below basically where the water becomes drinkable. So at that concept, we can basically take that water and now water our golf area. My next big push is going to be there's a gap missing on Woodward in our community. And once we fix that sewer line there, is to use the old sewer line, and we already have it crossed over. Great Wolf that came into our community, they are actually run on reclaimed water. So inside, not the water slides, but every other use inside is coming from the sewer treatment plant. And when we did that, we actually had to run a line underneath 120 to go to the south also. So that will allow us to run, once we complete that, our largest park, which is Woodward Park, will also be able to run on purple pipe reclaimed water. And then another thing that we've started with that is also all of our developments. It's a requirement for developers to put in purple pipe already into the projects. So that way the goal is one day every resident will be able to use for outdoor, reclaimed water and not potable water for all those uses. So that's another sustainability thing that I think is really good for our community coming forward.
That's great. Yeah, and I'll just add, those are great ideas, and of course in the Bay Area these have been discussed for many years, but very hard to actually implement. But if all of this takes place, there is another big opportunity, which is using some of the water for repurposing the water as well. There are bacteria, there are algae, there are many organisms that there are companies. If we connect with these companies, they will want to come here and have these tanks where they can extract. Unfortunately, in our wastewater systems, there are growth hormones, there are all sorts of drugs, there are all these chemicals. And then if we many of the systems don't treat them very well. So there are some sustainability companies that have some organisms that can grow and pick these up and recycle and extract them. And so there's a whole new industry that is developing with the wastewater system. So this is a really important aspect, and I am glad to hear that
another great one to, I would love to hear more information from you, because I think there's so many avenues of having these things that are coming up, and maybe they're not big enough companies where it's not maybe marketable or money wise, but I think there's a great place for a partnership between private and public sector to help push these through, that actually is also helping the environment and the communities on the long run. So definitely, I think that sounds great. And I think same thing, there's another one I think you may be familiar with, is that we have digesters set up at our treatment plant that convert fats, oils, and greases, and taking in our food waste and converting them into CNG fuel. So we're actually the only city and the first city in the area here in the valley to do that. So what we've done now is we have digesters in place where we take in food waste from restaurants. Eventually, we're going to be rolling that out to all the residents for residential also. But we take in that food waste, and so our garbage trucks bring that into the treatment plant, and it converts into CNG fuel. And then our garbage trucks and our buses now are all run on CNG. So we've now completed the full circle, and
that's great.
So we got food creating fuel on the other side, and back in and making a circle there.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I can see is that Manteca, even though it's growing, it is at a place where it is not so big yet that things are harder to do. So it is at a stage where these things are manageable, and that's why there is this whole great potential to use technology along with the growth to benefit all the citizens, whether they're have been here a longer time or new ones, to kind of collaborate and work together, support each other in the city.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you said, we're a large community, but we're still a
Yeah.
small community where
Right.
everybody does want the best, and we can work together. And I think we have that opportunity where there isn't so much red tape that you can't
Yeah.
move things through, where you still can reach all the way to the top and figure out ideas, and you can sit together at a table and figure out, is this doable for our city or not? And that's where I think sometimes we miss the boat in some of the largest communities.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, this has been great. Thank you, Gary, and wish you all the best. And certainly, work is not done. This is just a discussion. So all the best with the election, but as well as the future of making the city as your vision is. So thank you again for joining on Terra Science.
Yeah, thank you, Ajnish, and I appreciate the time, and I would love to come back even after this and talk about some different things that we're doing in our community, and love to partner and learn anything that you can help to maybe make us better.
Certainly, I will be in touch. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
You've been watching Terra Science, the podcast where reality matters.
We discuss food, planet, consciousness, the issues that we face, and the solutions that can be offered. And we discuss with wonderful guests who are leading the way in finding these solutions.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell.